Okay. Hi, my name is Kayla Cooper, and today I'm going to be talking about the circle of life. Here's my standard. It's Science 5th grade, and it says, create a model to illustrate the transfer of matter among producers, consumers, including scavengers and decomposers, and the environment. So let's start. I have a couple definitions. We have producer, which is an organism that serves as a food source for other organisms in a food chain. We have consumer, which is an organism that feeds on other organisms in the food chain. We have decomposer, which is an organism that decomposes or breaks down organic material. We have scavenger, which is an animal that feeds on dead organisms. And we have the food chain, a sequence of organisms in an ecosystem in which each species is the food of the next member of the chain. So let's go one by one. Here we have producers, and they make their own food by taking in sunlight. Again, they're a food source for other organisms, and they're typically green plants. So here we have pictures. We have a tree, some apples, a fern type thing. So next we have consumers. They do not make their own food. They feed on producers or other consumers. They consist of herbivores, which are plant eaters, omnivores, which eat both plants and animals, and carnivores, which eats other animals. So for example, we have the deer, which is a herbivore, and they only feast on plants, which are producers. We have the lion, which is a carnivore, and they only feast on other animals or other consumers. And then we have the black bear, which are omnivores and feast on plants and animals, so producers and consumers. So my question is, would a grasshopper be considered a consumer? And the answer is yes. All insects are consumers because they feast on other consumers, other insects, or producers, plants. Okay, now we have decomposers. They feed on the dead organisms. They decompose or break down the dead material for producers to make into food. They are essentially called the garbage men of the animal kingdom. And they consist of bacteria, fungi, some insects, worms, and snails. So we have the worm, mushroom, insects, bacteria. Next we have scavengers. So these are animals that feed on dead organisms. They usually do not hunt live prey, and they are carnivores. So we have the hyena, vulture, and the coyote. Now we have the food chain. So this is a visual representation. It shows you who is eating whom. There are numerous food chains. Most typically begin with plants, thus putting them at the bottom of the food chain. So in words, let's say we have grass, which is a producer. So the caterpillar comes along and eats the grass, the consumer, and a bird eats the caterpillar, the consumer. So a visual would be grass, and then an arrow pointing to the caterpillar and an arrow pointing to the bird. So the arrows point to what eats itself. So for example, the grass, the arrow points to the caterpillar, so the caterpillar eats the grass. And with the caterpillar, the arrow is pointing to the bird, so that means the bird eats the caterpillar. So next I have some pictures. So we have the sun giving sunlight, producing the grass. The mouse eats the grass. The snake eats the mouse, and then the hawk eats the snake. And here are just a couple of more food chains. We have a three-linked food chain, which we have corn. Rat eats the corn, and the owl eats the rat. See how the arrows are pointing? This is just with pictures instead of words. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a four-linked food chain. So we have carrots, the rabbit eats the carrots, fox eats the rabbit, and the lion eats the fox. And then a five-linked food chain. You have grass, grasshopper eats the grass, frog eats the grasshopper, python eats the frog, and eagle eats the python. So you see how they can just keep going, essentially. But here's one with a decomposer. So we have grass, this is a producer, we're going to ignore these other terms. We have grasshopper eating the grass, bluebird eating the grasshopper, snake eating the bluebird, an owl eating the snake, and when the owl dies, it decomposes, and the decomposers break down the dead material and produce it into food. That's all I have.